It sounds like something out of a crime thriller. A man locked behind prison walls, stripped of his freedom, yet somehow pulling off one of the most daring CIT heists in southern Africa. But this wasn't fiction, it was real. Tauto, a notorious gang boss, failed to rob an armored van in South Africa and landed in prison. Authorities thought it was over. They were wrong. From his cell, he built a digital empire of crime, seduced an old flame into loyalty, and orchestrated robberies across borders with military precision. Phones, laptops, inside informants, Tauto had it all. This is the jaw-dropping story of how a man with no freedom still managed to run a violent cash heist from inside a locked cell. Tauto was no ordinary criminal. In the streets, he was feared. In the underworld, he was respected. Known for organizing violent cash-in-transit robberies, his name sent shivers through armored van crews and law enforcement. When the Boksburg heist failed, police believed they had finally taken down a giant. That robbery was supposed to be smooth. Tauto's team had the route and the timing. But something went wrong, and the plan collapsed before they even reached the van. The crew scattered, some arrested on the spot. Tauto was captured and sent straight into custody, facing a long sentence. Inside the prison system, officers congratulated each other. They thought they had ended a wave of CIT crimes. The courtroom echoed with confidence. Reporters wrote headlines about a broken empire, but behind those headlines, something darker was already taking shape. Tauto didn't panic in prison. He didn't shout or threaten anyone. He simply adjusted. With no street access, he now had something even more valuable: time. Time to think. Time to plan. Within weeks, Tauto was already moving. He didn't wait. His reputation opened doors behind bars. Inmates wanted to know him. Guards feared crossing him, and corruption flowed like water. That's how he got what he needed: a phone and a laptop. It didn't take much effort. He knew who to talk to and how to make it worth their while. With those devices in hand, he was back in business. This wasn't just survival, it was a strategy. The prison walls couldn't cage his mind. The police outside had no clue. To them, he was just another locked-up criminal. But every night, behind the steel doors, he was rebuilding. Messages were sent, calls were made, and connections reactivated. In silence, Tauto's web of power grew again. He didn't need to lift anymore. Others would do it for him. All he had to do was think, direct, and reward. He still had contacts in the underworld, and now he had time to use them all. His empire wasn't destroyed. It was being refined. From his cell, he started reaching out. One of his first moves was contacting a woman he once knew. It began with a message, simple, harmless. But behind it was a plan already in motion. What she didn't know was that she was about to become his eyes on the outside. He made her feel wanted again. He gave her attention. While other inmates begged for favors, Tauto gave gifts. Through the screen, he seduced, manipulated, and controlled. The woman, feeling seen, quickly fell back under his influence. While this emotional trap was forming, Tauto kept building his network. He didn't stop with one phone. He had backups. He spoke to gangs still loyal to him. From prison, he was directing runs, gathering information, and mapping new routes. This wasn't a comeback. It was an upgrade. Tauto now operated without the risks of being physically present. No fingerprints, no cameras, no chase scenes, just strategy and execution, delivered from behind bars. Prison should have ended his story. It didn't. Instead, it gave him a disguise. The police had no reason to suspect that a locked-up man was behind the new wave of cross-border crimes. But Botswana was about to feel the reach of his hand. The justice system had celebrated too early. They didn't understand who they were dealing with. They thought steel bars would hold back a man who had run rings around law enforcement for years. What they failed to see was that Tauto didn't need the streets. He only needed a screen and a voice. In the silence of his cell, as the lights dimmed at night, his mind kept working. There was no siren loud enough to stop what he had started. No warden strict enough to break his control. The man they thought was finished was just getting started. Tauto wasn't a prisoner. He was a commander in hiding. The Boksburg failure wasn't an end. It was a shift in tactics. Now, he wasn't dodging bullets. He was giving the orders. What happened next would shock two countries. In prison, Tauto wasn't wasting time. While others waited for visits or counted the days, he reached into the outside world. With a smuggled phone in hand, he opened Instagram and searched for a familiar name. She was someone he had been with before, someone who still smiled at his old photos. He sent her a message, just one word, "Hi." She replied almost instantly. The spark lit quickly. What began as small talk soon turned into late-night conversations. From texts, they moved to video calls. Within days, the screen became a window for something deeper and far more dangerous. Tauto knew exactly what he was doing. Every smile he gave, every word he typed was calculated. He made her feel special, chosen, needed. She was lonely and broke, and he offered her attention when no one else did. That's how he trapped her, softly, but with purpose. From his cell, he watched her fall for him again. She blushed at compliments and laughed at his jokes. When she hesitated, he showered her with love. He promised her a better life, a future, a reason to trust him again. And with each message, she believed him more. He didn't stop with words. Tauto began sending her money. He asked for her bank details and made transfers that left her shocked. She bought clothes, fixed her hair, and posted pictures of her new life. Her friends didn't ask questions. They only saw her glow. The money wasn't random. It was bait. Every gift tied her closer to him. He became the center of her world, even though he was behind bars. She waited for his calls, lived for his messages, and obeyed his instructions. Her loyalty wasn't forced. It was built with care. After a few months, he made a request. He told her he had a job. Nothing too risky, just a ride. She was to go with his boys, stay quiet, and bring back money. It sounded simple, and it paid well. She agreed without a second thought. Her first trip was smooth. No police, no danger. Just long roads, a few bags, and cash waiting at the end. The job was real, and the reward was sweet. She wanted more. Tauto knew he had her. The jobs kept coming. She crossed into Botswana, back to South Africa, always with the gang. Each time, she earned more, and each time, her bond with Tauto grew stronger. To her, he was more than a boyfriend. He was her protector, her boss, her provider. She didn't care that he was in prison. If anything, that made him more powerful. He gave her orders from a place others feared, and she carried them out, proudly. Tauto used her well. He knew a van full of men raised suspicion. But a woman? She made the gang look normal. Police didn't stop them. Border checks were smooth. Her presence was the perfect cover. She was the shield that hid the By early 2019, she wasn't just a helper. She was a key part of the crew. She spoke their language, handled the packages, and followed orders without question. In every job, she played her part, and she did it all for him. Tauto didn't need to leave his cell. She became his eyes. She told him what was happening on the streets. She sent updates, voice notes, and photos. Every detail reached him. Every move started with his approval. He had built his control through a screen. Other prisoners watched sports or played cards. Tauto ran an empire. His woman moved across borders while he sat in a locked room. She delivered, carried messages, and stayed loyal. All because he made her believe she mattered. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. Her love blinded her. And by the time she realized what she'd become, it was too late. She wasn't just helping a prisoner. She was helping a kingpin keep his crown. What looked like romance was strategy. What seemed like affection was control. Tauto had turned love into a weapon. And now, that weapon was in motion, driving through Botswana, hiding crime in plain sight. In 2020, the world changed. Streets emptied, borders closed, and the movement of people slowed to a crawl. COVID-19 lockdowns hit hard, and Tauto felt it from behind prison walls. His operations depended on travel, and now that was gone. With every passing week, the money stopped flowing. At first, he stayed calm, but the silence became a problem. No cash meant no comfort. Guards became less friendly, and luxuries inside the cell faded. For the first time, prison started to feel like prison. Tauto didn't panic, he planned. Sitting on a thin mattress, staring at the concrete walls, he thought of what came next. If couldn't move, then money had to be taken. His mind went back to what he knew best: CIT heists. He picked up the phone and started dialing. Old contacts answered. Some were scared, others were desperate like him. It didn't take long to rebuild the circle. The streets were quiet, but the hunger was loud. Tauto was clear. He wasn't waiting for the world to reopen. He would force it open. And that meant targeting armored vans again. But this time, not in South Africa. He had his eyes on Botswana. From his cell, he gathered information. He asked the right questions and got the right answers. Bank routes, shift times, weak spots. Everything was sent to him by voice notes, photos, and messages. His woman on the outside helped confirm the details. April 2021 was his move. The team went in, quiet but ready. A CIT van was hit in Botswana, and the crew got away clean. Cash was taken, and no one was caught. From his bed, Tauto smiled. When the money came in, he sent a piece of it to his woman. He told her to enjoy herself. She went on a trip, spent without worry, and felt like royalty. When she returned, there was a surprise waiting, a brand new car. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. The success of the heist said it all. She now knew what Tauto could do, even from a prison cell, and she was proud to be part of it. But one job wasn't enough. Tauto wasn't the type to settle. He wanted more, and he was already looking ahead. By October 2021, he was ready again. A new target had been selected, Turnright Mall. This hit was bigger, not just because of the cash, but because of the added prize. The gang walked away with f***s. These weren't just any they belonged to the police. That kind of prize changed everything. Each move was precise. Tauto had his team follow strict orders. They rehearsed routes, timed escapes, and avoided cameras. Every detail was double-checked. From inside his cell, he controlled it all. After the job, they erased everything. Phones were broken, chats were wiped, and devices were dumped. No evidence, no trail, only the money remained. These weren't sloppy criminals. This was a machine, a system run by a man with no access to the streets. His command center was a prison cell, but his reach extended across borders. By the end of 2021, his empire had evolved. It was no longer limited to South Africa. Now, Botswana was part of the map. He had crossed walls, crossed borders, and crossed lines. He had the money, he had respect, and he had control. But something inside him still wanted more. The two heists had worked, but they weren't enough. He began to talk differently. He spoke of a bigger goal, something that would shake the region. His voice, calm but sharp, carried weight. His woman listened closely. Every night, he lay back and imagined it. The big one. A hit so large, it would set him apart from anyone who came before. Not for fame, but for power. In early 2022, a message reached Tauto's phone. It came from a trusted contact, someone with inside knowledge. The message wasn't long, but it said enough. A major CIT van was moving money through Phase 2 near the Bank of Baroda in Botswana. It was a job worth millions. Tauto read the details again and again. This wasn't just another robbery, this was a prize. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but the reward was too big to ignore. He called his woman and gave her instructions. She was to buy a house near the target location. She didn't question him. Within days, she moved into a house just blocks from the bank. From the windows, she could watch the street. Her job was simple, observe everything. And every night, she sent reports back to the man in prison. Tauto wanted to know it all. What time the van arrived, how many guards walked beside it, what kind of they carried. She was his eyes, and he relied on her fully. To help her, he sent a video of the target van. She was told to study how it parked and where the guards stood. She took note of the vehicle's position, timing, and all movements around it. She followed every order without hesitation. Each new piece of information gave Tauto more control. At first, the van followed a regular pattern. Same time, same path, same guards. But slowly, things changed. More police began showing up. She noticed new faces among the escorts. Uniforms changed. Weapons looked heavier. Marked police vehicles started circling the area more often. Something had shifted, and it made her nervous. Tauto felt it too. The informant's silence now raised questions. It was possible the job had been leaked, or worse, that someone inside had flipped. But the window for action was closing, and Tauto wasn't willing to back out yet. He told his woman to keep watching. Even with the increased security, he believed there was still a way. Every day, she returned to the mall, acted casual, and sent more updates. She made voice notes, videos, and took photos without drawing attention. From his cell, Tauto pieced the puzzle together. He looked for patterns in the changes. He adjusted the plan daily. He mapped entry and escape points based on real-time footage. By mid-February, he had enough to make a move. February 20th, 2022 was set. The team woke up early. They ate and geared up. But when they got to the area, the setup was tight. There were too many guards, and response teams looked ready. The gang pulled back. They returned to the house empty-handed. It was a quiet ride back. Nobody said a word. They knew they had failed. But Tauto wasn't done. That night, he made another call. He told his woman to check again in the morning. She went back, walked around, and observed. Something had changed. The escorts had been reduced again. There were fewer patrols, and the van seemed back on its usual route. She sent the footage to Tauto. His voice on the call was calm. The new plan was made quickly. They would strike the next morning. On the day of the second attempt, the gang left early. The woman stayed behind, telling them she'd meet friends nearby. She wasn't nervous this time. It felt like the right moment. She thought everything was under control. Later that afternoon, she came home. As she opened the door, her heart jumped. Stacks of money were on the table, scattered and fresh. The gang was smiling, laughing, and celebrating. The job was done. The van had been hit, and no one got caught. Tauto had done it again. From his prison cell, he had planned and pulled off one of the most secure robberies in Botswana. The gang drank, ate, and counted the money. They believed they had won. They believed no one would find them. But outside, the noise had already reached the wrong ears. The sudden fire during the robbery, the fast escape, the way they left behind empty cartridges and scattered footprints. Police had picked up the trail before the gang even got home. Nearby CCTV footage captured movement. Some neighbors saw cars they didn't recognize. The gang had been careful, but not perfect. Their house was already flagged. Police were watching it before nightfall. Tauto's plan had succeeded. The money was real and the hit was clean. But he had made one mistake. He underestimated how fast law enforcement could respond. The very act that brought him success also exposed everything. That night, the woman heard a sound outside. She froze. Sirens screamed from all directions. Helicopter blades cut through the air above. Before she could speak, the house was surrounded. What had felt like a victory turned into a trap. The heist had worked, but it also gave them away. Tauto's biggest win had become his biggest mistake. The police didn't knock. They moved in. The celebration was over, and the cost was coming. The celebration didn't last. Just hours after the successful heist, a knock came at the door. The woman froze as sirens screamed in the distance, and a helicopter roared above the house. The gang jumped to their feet. Were loaded and windows were checked. Then everything exploded into chaos. The house shook with noise as bullets tore through the walls. The gang wildly, not knowing how many were outside. Police returned without mercy. In seconds, the quiet hideout became a war zone. The woman screamed and ran into the nearest bedroom. She shoved clothes aside and squeezed into the wardrobe. Her heart pounded as the floor trembled under heavy boots. Glass shattered, and men cried out. Echoed louder than ever. Screams came from every room. She clutched her chest and held her breath. A moment later, silence fell. Then came the voice from a loudspeaker, cold and sharp. The voice ordered everyone to surrender. She waited, hoping someone else would respond. No one did. She stepped out slowly, hands up. As she moved through the hallway, the sight froze her. Bodies were on the floor, streaked the tiles. All 11 gang members were dead. She was the only one left alive, but she wasn't safe yet. A sharp pain in her leg made her stumble, soaked through her jeans. She had been though she didn't remember when. Officers grabbed her and rushed her outside. Within minutes, she was in an ambulance. She spent 3 days in the hospital. Guards watched her every second. She didn't sleep much. Her mind replayed the horror, but deep down, she knew it was over. At the police station, she didn't hold back. She told them everything. From the first Instagram message to the final fight, she described how Tauto ran the crew from his prison cell, how he gave orders, moved money, and stayed in control the whole time. Officers listened in disbelief. They checked her story, and every piece lined up. Phone records, bank transfers, photos. It was all real. A man locked away for years, had run a multi-border crime ring, and no one had noticed. The woman named people, locations, and details only the gang could know. She led them to old burner phones and hidden notes. Every answer opened another door, and each one led back to Tauto. The hardest part for the police wasn't catching him. He was already locked up. The real shock was how much power he still had. From behind thick walls, he had done what few free men could. He had built an empire and nearly gotten away with it. Months passed as the investigation deepened. Teams from both South Africa and Botswana worked together. The case grew bigger with each new lead, lawyers prepared for trial. The woman's statement remained at the center of it all. By February 2025, the case finally reached the courtroom. Tauto stood before the judge, silent and cold. The evidence was overwhelming. There was no way out. His long rule was finished. He was sentenced to 38 years in prison, no parole, no second chance. This time, he wouldn't escape through influence or silence. This time, the bars were real, but even as the doors closed, a shadow remained. People asked how a man with no freedom had become so dangerous, how he had fooled the system for so long, and what he might have done next if no one had stopped him. It wasn't the police who ended his run. It wasn't a raid. It was the silence from a source that went cold, and the woman who survived, bleeding and broken, but willing to talk. The most dangerous part of Tauto was never his gang. It wasn't the or the money. It was his mind, a mind that never rested, a mind that ruled from a cage. Because even locked behind bars, the truth remained. Tauto was never really locked away. His body was in prison, but his reach, his ideas, and his danger lived far beyond the walls. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.